My name is Jessica Morgan. I'm 26 years old, and I'm about to tell you the story of how my vanity, my materialism, and my complete lack of genuine character destroyed my entire life in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. A story that taught me the hardest lesson anyone can learn about what truly matters in this world. A lesson I learned far too late to save myself from losing absolutely everything I thought defined me. This is my confession, my cautionary tale, my desperate attempt to warn others not to make the catastrophic mistakes I made when I chose to value money and appearance over character and authentic human connection, when I thought I was so clever manipulating someone for financial gain, but ended up destroying my own soul in the process. 3 years ago, I was living what I genuinely believed was the dream life that every young woman in America should aspire to achieve. I was a successful Instagram influencer based in Los Angeles, with 2.8 million followers who hung on my every post, every story, every carefully curated image of my supposedly perfect existence. I had built my entire online presence around beauty, fashion, luxury lifestyle content that showcased expensive clothes from designer brands, exotic travel destinations with pristine beaches and 5-star resorts, fine dining at exclusive restaurants where reservations were impossible to get unless you were someone important, makeup tutorials where I demonstrated products that cost more than most people's weekly grocery budgets, fitness routines performed in expensive athleisure wear at elite gyms with celebrity trainers. My feed was aesthetic perfection. Every photo professionally edited to remove any hint of imperfection. Every caption carefully crafted to project image of confidence, success, unattainable beauty that made my followers both admire and envy me in equal measure. I made excellent money from this digital persona I had created. Brand sponsorships paid me anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 per post depending on the company and product. I had ongoing ambassador relationships with several luxury fashion and beauty brands that provided steady monthly income plus unlimited free products. I did promotional appearances at clubs and events that paid thousands of dollars just for me to show up and be photographed. I sold my own line of presets and filters that followers could purchase to make their photos look like mine. Altogether, I was earning around $30,000 per month, which for a 26-year-old woman with no college degree and no traditional job skills was absolutely incredible income that allowed me to live in a beautiful apartment in West Hollywood, drive leased Mercedes convertible, wear designer clothes and carry handbags that cost thousands of dollars, maintain the exact lifestyle I portrayed online, which was essential because my followers would immediately detect any hint of fakeness or financial struggle. But here's what my followers didn't know. What nobody knew except my closest friends who were equally shallow and materialistic as I was. My entire self-worth, my entire sense of identity, my entire reason for existing was completely wrapped up in my appearance and in the appearance of having luxurious, successful life. I was absolutely obsessed with physical beauty to a degree that was genuinely pathological. I spent minimum of 3 hours every single morning on hair and makeup. Before I could even consider leaving my apartment, I had multiple cosmetic procedures including lip fillers, Botox, breast augmentation. I worked out 2 hours daily, not for health, but purely for aesthetic purposes to maintain Instagram-worthy body. I took hundreds of photos every time I went anywhere just to get one perfect shot for posting. I judged everyone I encountered primarily on their physical appearance and their visible wealth. If someone wasn't conventionally attractive or wasn't obviously successful financially, I literally would not give them the time of day. I considered them beneath me, not worth my attention or energy. My dating history reflected this superficiality completely. I had dated exclusively men who were extremely good-looking and wealthy, professional athletes, minor celebrities, successful business owners, men who looked perfect in photos and could afford to take me to expensive places, but every single one of these relationships had been hollow and ultimately failed because neither I nor the men I dated were capable of genuine emotional connection or depth. We were all just using each other for superficial benefits. They wanted trophy girlfriend to show off, and I wanted financial support and social status boost. I had never been in love. Not really. I'm not even sure I was capable of love in traditional sense because I had spent so many years focused entirely on external appearances that I had never developed any kind of internal emotional life or capacity for authentic intimacy. Then exactly 2 years ago, everything changed when I attended exclusive charity gala in Beverly Hills. One of those events where tickets cost $5,000 per person, and all the wealthy elite of Los Angeles came to be seen and photographed. I was invited as influencer to provide social media coverage for the event, which meant I got in free. Plus, they paid me $10,000 just to post about it. I wore a custom designer gown that had been lent to me specifically for the event. I looked absolutely stunning if I'm being honest, which I was because I had spent 6 hours getting ready, and every single detail was perfect, from my professionally styled hair, to my flawless makeup, to my manicured nails. I was working the room, taking photos and videos for my Instagram stories when I saw him across the ballroom, and my immediate visceral reaction was one of shock and honestly disgust at why someone who looked like that would be allowed at such an exclusive high-end event. He was perhaps the most physically unattractive man I had ever seen in person, and I don't say that to be cruel, but simply to convey the truth of my initial perception. He was probably around 30 years old, extremely short, maybe 5 feet 4 inches tall, which in Los Angeles, where every man seems to be 6 feet or taller, made him stand out negatively. He was significantly overweight, maybe 250 pounds on that small frame, giving him round, almost circular body shape. His face had severe acne scarring that covered both cheeks with deep pitted marks that even expensive dermatology clearly hadn't been able to completely fix. His hair was thinning badly, with large bald spot visible on crown of his head. He had weak chin and overbite that made his profile particularly unflattering. He wore thick glasses that magnified his eyes in an unflattering way, and his posture was hunched and uncomfortable, as if he knew he didn't belong and was trying to make himself even smaller. I actually laughed out loud when I saw him. I turned to my friend Madison, who had come with me to the gala, and I pointed him out, saying, "Oh my God, look at that guy. What is he doing here? Did he win some kind of contest? This is supposed to be an exclusive event, and they let in someone who looks like that?" Madison laughed too, and we both took photo of him from across the room, intending to share it later with our other friends as joke about how even rich people events sometimes have random, ugly people who somehow get in. But then something happened that made me completely reassess the situation. I watched as several of the most important and powerful people at the gala approached this man with what appeared to be genuine respect and deference. I saw tech billionaire, whose face I recognized from magazine covers, shaking his hand enthusiastically. I saw famous actress who had won multiple Oscars laughing at something he said. I saw event organizers treating him like he was guest of honor. And my influencer, instincts which were highly attuned to social hierarchies and power dynamics, immediately told me that this person, despite his appearance, was someone extremely important and probably extremely wealthy. I did what I always did when I identified potential opportunity. I researched. I casually asked one of the event staff who that man was, pretending I thought I recognized him from somewhere, and what she told me made my heart literally skip a beat with excitement and possibility. His name was Marcus Chen. He was 31 years old, and he was heir to one of the largest commercial real estate fortunes in California. His grandfather had emigrated from China in the 1950s and had slowly built an empire of shopping centers, office buildings, and residential properties across Southern California that was now worth estimated $3 billion. Marcus's father had died in a car accident 5 years ago, and Marcus had inherited controlling interest in the family business, making him personally worth somewhere around $1.5 billion. He was actively involved in managing the business and had a reputation for being a brilliant businessman. Despite his young age, he was also known for being an extremely generous philanthropist who gave tens of millions of dollars annually to various causes, which was why he was at this particular charity gala where he had donated $5 million to Children's Hospital. $1.5 billion. I literally could not comprehend that amount of money. It was generational wealth beyond anything I had ever been close to. It was private jets and multiple mansions, an ability to buy literally anything in the world without even thinking about the cost. It was level of financial security that would solve every problem I had or would ever have for the rest of my life and for my children's lives and their children's lives. And this man who had this impossible fortune was standing alone in corner of ballroom, looking uncomfortable and out of place, like he would rather be anywhere else. And I knew in that moment exactly what I was going to do. I approached him with my most charming smile, the smile I had perfected over years of influencer work that was warm and genuine looking, but was actually completely calculated and fake. I introduced myself, saying I was covering the event for social media and would love to feature him in my content since he was such a generous donor. He looked surprised and honestly suspicious that someone like me was talking to someone like him, but he was polite and agreed. I took few photos with him, making sure to angle the shots in ways that minimized his unattractive features as much as possible and maximized my own beauty, creating contrast that made me look even better by comparison. I flirted with him shamelessly, using every technique I had learned from years of manipulating men. I laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny. I touched his arm lightly while we talked, creating physical connection. I looked into his eyes with intense, focused attention that made him feel like he was the only person in the room who mattered to me. I asked him questions about himself and his business, pretending to be genuinely fascinated by his answers, even though I actually found the topic of commercial real estate incredibly boring, and I could see him responding to this attention in exactly the way I expected. He was clearly not used to beautiful women showing interest in him. His whole demeanor changed from uncomfortable and defensive to more relaxed and open. He started smiling more, talking more freely. His body language shifted to face me more directly. At the end of the evening, I did something bold. I asked him if he would like to get coffee sometime, saying I would love to hear more about his philanthropic work. And I gave him my phone number. He looked absolutely shocked that someone like me was asking him out. He stuttered slightly when he said yes, he would like that very much, and I walked away knowing I had him completely hooked. Over the next several weeks, I executed my plan with precision that would have been impressive if it wasn't so morally bankrupt. I went on first date with Marcus acting like I was genuinely interested in him as person, when really I was already calculating how long I would need to date him before I could access his money. He took me to very nice but not overly fancy restaurant, which I later learned was deliberate test on his part to see if I was the type of woman who only cared about expensive places. I passed the test by acting like I was having wonderful time and wasn't at all bothered by the moderate pricing, even though internally I was disappointed he wasn't immediately showing off his wealth. On second date, Marcus opened up to me about his experiences with dating. He told me with obvious pain in his voice that he had been used and rejected by women his entire adult life because of his appearance, that women would sometimes initially give him chance because they found out he was wealthy, but would eventually leave him for more attractive men, even when he treated them incredibly well, that he had developed very thick skin and low expectations when it came to romance, that he had honestly given up on finding someone who would love him for who he actually was, rather than what he could provide materially. As he told me this story that was clearly deeply painful for him, I made all the right sympathetic noises. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I looked into his eyes and said with completely fake sincerity, "Marcus, I can't believe anyone would treat you that way. You're such an amazing person. Anyone would be lucky to be with you." And I watched his face light up with hope that maybe finally he had found someone different, someone genuine. I am absolutely disgusted with myself now, remembering how coldly I manipulated his vulnerability, how I took his pain and his loneliness and weaponized them to make him trust me. But at the time, I felt nothing except satisfaction that my plan was working. We continued dating, and I played my role perfectly. I never asked him for money directly because I knew that would trigger his defenses based on his past experiences. Instead, I let him offer things to me. I would mention casually that I loved certain designer brand and then act surprised and grateful when he bought me items from that brand. I would talk about wanting to visit certain expensive destinations, and he would plan elaborate trips for us. I would admire jewelry in store windows, and days later he would gift me those pieces. I let him gradually elevate my lifestyle in ways that seemed to come from his generosity, rather than my manipulation. And here's the thing that made everything so much more complicated and morally confusing. As months went by and I spent more time with Marcus, I started to realize that he actually was a remarkable person in ways that had nothing to do with his money. He was genuinely intelligent with mind that could discuss complex topics from business to philosophy to science. He was incredibly well-read and could have fascinating conversations about books and ideas. He had quiet, understated sense of humor that, once I learned to recognize it was actually very funny. He was patient and kind in ways that were completely foreign to me. He was generous not just with money, but with his time and attention and emotional support. He remembered small details about things I told him, and would follow up on them later, showing he actually listened and cared. He treated everyone from billionaire business partners to waiters and valets with same respect and courtesy. When we would go to his various properties across California, I saw how he treated his employees. He knew many of them by name, asked about their families, paid well above market rate, and offered excellent benefits, had policies in place to help employees with education and childcare and health issues. He genuinely cared about people who worked for him, not as resources to be exploited, but as human beings who deserved dignity and support. When we went to charity events, I saw that his philanthropy wasn't just writing checks for tax deductions. He was actively involved in organizations he supported, spending time with sick children at hospitals he funded, meeting with scholarship recipients from programs he established, working directly with nonprofit leaders to understand how he could most effectively help. I started having genuine feelings for him, which terrified me, because it wasn't part of my plan. I was supposed to stay emotionally detached, using him purely as means to financial security, but he was making that increasingly difficult by being actual good person who treated me better than any of the conventionally handsome, wealthy men I had dated before. He never pressured me sexually. He respected my boundaries. He was interested in my thoughts and feelings and dreams, even though I rarely shared anything real because I was so used to maintaining my fake influencer persona. He made me feel valued in ways that went beyond just my physical appearance, which was completely new experience for me. But despite these growing feelings, I couldn't let go of my superficiality and materialism. I was still embarrassed to be seen with him in public. I would strategically angle photos we took together to minimize his appearance in frame while maximizing my own. I rarely posted about him on my Instagram because I didn't want my followers to see that I was dating someone so physically unattractive. I made excuses when he wanted to attend public events with me as couple because I was worried about how it would affect my image as glamorous influencer. I still made cruel jokes about his appearance with my friends when he wasn't around. I still fundamentally viewed him as means to end, rather than as person I genuinely loved. After dating for 8 months, Marcus asked me to move in with him. He had bought us penthouse apartment in downtown Los Angeles. Absolutely stunning place with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. 4,000 square feet of luxury living space, professionally decorated with art pieces that each cost more than most people's cars. Building amenities that included private gym, pool, spa, concierge service that could arrange anything we needed, and of course, Marcus put everything in both our names, giving me equal ownership, which meant if we broke up, I would be entitled to half the value of this multi-million-dollar property. I said yes immediately, not because I loved him, though I was starting to care for him more than I wanted to admit, but because this was level of wealth and security I had always dreamed of achieving. Living with Marcus revealed even more depth to his character. He was meticulous about household management, not in controlling way, but in thoughtful way. He did his share of chores without being asked. He cooked elaborate meals for us on weekends because he enjoyed cooking and found it relaxing. He was clean and organized. He was considerate about my space and my needs. He was affectionate in gentle, non-demanding ways. He told me he loved me and meant it completely, even though I couldn't bring myself to say it back genuinely. He talked about future with me, about getting married eventually, about having children together, building life that would last forever. My influencer career reached new heights after I moved in with Marcus, even though I still didn't really feature him in my content. Just the fact that I was now living in multi-million-dollar penthouse and had access to resources that allowed me to create even more luxurious content attracted more followers and more brand sponsorship deals. I was now making $50,000 per month between my Instagram income and the generous allowance Marcus gave me, even though I didn't need allowance, because he paid for absolutely everything. I had achieved financial security beyond my wildest dreams. I had life of absolute luxury, and all I had to do was continue pretending to be girlfriend who cared about this man for his character rather than his money. Then 1 year and 3 months into our relationship, everything came crashing down in most spectacularly public and devastating way imaginable. And it was entirely my own stupid fault, my own carelessness, my own inability to stop being the shallow, terrible person I had always been, even though I had everything anyone could want. It was Saturday afternoon, and I was at the penthouse by myself because Marcus had gone to his office to deal with some business emergency. I had invited my 2 closest friends, Madison and Brittany, over for afternoon of drinking champagne and hanging out. These were women who were just as superficial and materialistic as I was. Fellow influencers who measured their worth entirely in followers and sponsorships and designer clothes. Women who would never challenge me to be a better person because they were just as morally bankrupt as I was. We were drinking expensive champagne that Marcus had in wine cellar, sitting in the enormous living room with its stunning views, and I was showing them around the penthouse which they had only seen in photos before. They were appropriately envious and kept making comments about how lucky I was to have found such a rich guy, even if he was so ugly. And that's when I decided to be clever. I decided to do Instagram live session to show my followers around this incredible apartment. I thought it would be great content that would generate massive engagement and probably attract even more brand partnerships because it would showcase level of luxury I was living. I set up my phone on tripod in the living room. I positioned myself in front of windows with view of Los Angeles behind me, creating perfect backdrop. I checked my appearance in camera, making sure my hair and makeup were flawless. And then I hit the button to start Instagram Live, without realizing that my phone's settings had been changed somehow, and the audio was set to pick up much wider range than I thought it would. The live stream started, and immediately I had thousands of viewers tuning in, eager to see what I was going to share. I greeted everyone cheerfully and started my tour of the apartment, showing the living room, the gourmet kitchen, the master bedroom with its enormous walk-in closet full of designer clothes, the private gym, and as I was walking through giving this tour, Madison and Brittany were following me, having their own conversation behind me, which I thought wasn't being picked up by the microphone but actually was being captured perfectly clear on the live stream that was broadcasting to thousands and thousands of people. God, this place is incredible. Madison said in voice dripping with envy. How did you manage to trap a guy this rich? And that's when I made biggest mistake of my entire life. I was standing in the bedroom showing my followers the view from the windows. My phone was set up on dresser across the room. I thought I was far enough away that the microphone wouldn't pick up my voice clearly if I wasn't speaking directly to camera. And so I turned away from the phone toward Madison and Brittany and responded in normal conversational volume. Are you kidding? It was so easy, I said with a laugh that was full of cruel superiority. Yeah, Marcus is literally the ugliest guy I've ever seen in my life. I mean, seriously, he looks like a bridge troll. But when I found out he was worth like $1.5 billion, I immediately knew I had to get him hooked. I've just been playing him this whole time, pretending to care about his feelings and his personality and all that bullshit, and he totally believes that I'm in love with him. He thinks I'm different from all the other women who used him. It's honestly pathetic how desperate he is for affection. But hey, I'm living in a penthouse, rent-free. I have unlimited access to his credit cards. And when we get married, which he keeps talking about, I'll be set for life. After a couple years, I can divorce him and take half of everything. I mean, I can't look at him without feeling disgusted, especially when we have to be intimate. But the money is absolutely worth it. I just close my eyes and think about my bank account, and I can get through it. Madison and Brittany were laughing hysterically at my description. Brittany said, "Oh my God, you're terrible, but honestly, that's genius. I wish I could find an ugly rich guy to trap like that." And I continued, "The best part is that he has no idea. He thinks I'm this genuine person who loves him for who he is. He tells me all the time how lucky he feels to have found me, how grateful he is that I look past his appearance, and every time he says it, I have to try so hard not to laugh in his face, like, sir, the only thing I see when I look at you is dollar signs. I literally count the days until I can divorce you and take half this fortune." I continued this cruel monologue for another 2 or 3 minutes, describing in brutal detail how I manipulated him, how I faked interest in his boring business stories, how I pretended to be impressed by his intelligence and his character when really I couldn't care less, how I strategically avoided posting photos of him on social media because I was embarrassed to be associated with someone so physically unattractive, how I made fun of him behind his back with my friends. Every terrible thought and feeling I had ever had about him poured out in that moment of carelessness and arrogance. What I didn't realize in that moment, what I would realize minutes later to my absolute horror, was that my phone was still streaming live on Instagram to now over 10,000 viewers who were watching and listening to every single word I said. The microphone had picked up my entire confession perfectly clearly. Even though I thought I was too far away from the camera, my followers were hearing me expose myself as a terrible human being in real time, and the comment section of my live stream was absolutely exploding with reactions of shock, anger, disgust, and condemnation. People were screen recording the live stream to preserve evidence of what I was saying. They were tagging Marcus's name in comments, trying to make sure he would find out. They were sharing the live stream link across all social media platforms, making it go viral in real time. I continued talking for maybe 3 or 4 more minutes, completely oblivious to what was happening. And then I walked back over to my phone to check comments from my followers to see how they were responding to my apartment tour. And the first comment I saw made my blood turn to ice. "OMG, you realize we can hear everything you just said about Marcus, right? This is live. You just exposed yourself to 10,000 people." I grabbed my phone. I looked at the screen. I saw that I had been live for 22 minutes when I thought I had paused it before my conversation with Madison and Brittany. I scrolled through hundreds and hundreds of comments that were all expressing outrage and disgust at what I had said. I saw that over 12,000 people were currently watching. I saw that the viewer count was rapidly climbing as people were sharing the live stream, telling others to tune in to watch this terrible person expose herself. I ended the live stream immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might have a heart attack. Madison and Brittany had realized what happened, and they looked absolutely panicked. "Oh my God, Jessica, what did you do?" Madison said in voice full of horror. "That was live the whole time? Everyone heard what you said about Marcus?" I started hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe. I ran to bathroom and vomited from pure panic and horror. When I came back out, I looked at my Instagram account and I saw that I was losing followers at rate of hundreds per minute. The comments on all my recent posts were full of people calling me terrible names: gold digger, user, fake, heartless bitch, monster. People were messaging me directly with threats and condemnations, but more than any of that, I was terrified about Marcus finding out. I tried to do damage control immediately. I posted story on Instagram saying my account had been hacked and those weren't my real words. But everyone who had watched the live stream knew that was obvious lie. They had seen my face, heard my voice, watched me say those things unprompted by any hacker. My pathetic attempt at covering up made everything worse because now I was also a liar on top of being a terrible person. Within 30 minutes of me ending the live stream, Marcus came home, and I knew immediately that he had seen it, or at least heard about it. His face was completely pale, his eyes were red like he had been crying, his whole body language showed devastation and betrayal beyond anything I had ever seen. "Marcus, I can explain," I started to say, but my voice trailed off because there was absolutely no explanation that would make this better. There was no way to spin what I had said. "Explain what, Jessica?" he said in voice that was so full of pain it made me want to die. "Explain how you've been using me this whole time? Explain how you think I'm disgusting? Explain how you were just waiting to divorce me and take my money? Explain how every moment we spent together was a lie? Multiple people sent me the recording of your live stream, Jessica. I watched the whole thing. I heard every word you said, every cruel joke, every calculated manipulation, and you know what the worst part is? It's not even that you used me for money. I'm used to that. I've dealt with that. Before, the worst part is that I actually thought you were different. I actually believed that you saw me for who I was. I opened up to you about my deepest fears and insecurities about being used and unlovable, and you took all of that and weaponized it against me. You played me perfectly." I started crying, genuine tears that weren't calculated or fake for first time in our entire relationship. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I know what I said was terrible, but I do care about you. I've developed real feelings over time. Please give me chance to make this right." But he shook his head. "You don't get to do that, Jessica. You don't get to suddenly claim you have real feelings now that you've been exposed. I will never be able to trust anything you say ever again. How could I? You're a professional liar. Your entire career is based on creating fake perfect image. You've been lying to me for over a year about the most fundamental thing, which is whether you actually care about me as a person. And now I know that the answer is no. You never did. I was just walking ATM machine to you. I need you to leave. I need you out of this apartment immediately. Pack your things and go." "Marcus, please," I begged desperately, because I realized I was about to lose everything. "We can work through this. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll change. Please don't throw away everything we built together." "We didn't build anything, Jessica," he said with finality that made it clear there was no negotiating. "I built this life, and you parasitically attached yourself to it while secretly mocking me behind my back. Now get out before I call security to physically remove you." I packed bags with my clothes and few personal items. Marcus stood there watching me with expression of complete detachment and devastation. When I tried to hug him goodbye, he physically stepped away from me. "Don't touch me," he said, and those 3 words contained so much pain and revulsion that I will remember them forever. I left the penthouse, and within hours, Marcus's lawyer had served me with official notice that I had no claim to the apartment, since it had been his purchase and the paperwork showing joint ownership had never been properly executed. He had caught that legal loophole that meant I was walking away with nothing except the clothes and jewelry he had bought me over the course of our relationship. But the worst was still to come. By the next morning, my Instagram live confession had been turned into multiple YouTube videos, with titles like "Influencer accidentally exposes herself as gold digger on livestream," that had millions of views. It had been covered by multiple entertainment and gossip websites. It was trending on Twitter with hashtag #GoldDiggerJessica, where thousands of people were discussing what terrible person I was. Every brand that had ever sponsored me immediately terminated their contracts and posted public statements distancing themselves from me, saying they didn't want to be associated with someone who displayed such cruel and manipulative behavior. I lost 90% of my followers in 1 week. The remaining followers were mostly people who kept following me just to leave hateful comments on every single thing I posted. I went from 2.8 million followers to less than 200,000, and those who remained were not engaged fans, but rather people who enjoyed watching my downfall. My income went from $50,000 per month to essentially zero overnight. No brands would work with me. My attempted apology video, where I tried to express remorse, was ratioed mercilessly with 100,000 dislikes and comments calling me fake and performative. The friends I thought I had, including Madison and Brittany, immediately cut all ties with me. They deleted photos of us together from their social media. They released statements saying they were horrified by my behavior and had no idea I was capable of such cruelty. They threw me under the bus completely to protect their own influencer brands from being tainted by association with me. I had to move back in with my parents in Ohio, which was humiliating beyond words, because they had never approved of my influencer lifestyle and had been warning me for years that I was too focused on superficial things. I had to take job as receptionist at dental office making $13 an hour, which after living in multi-million-dollar penthouse felt like ultimate degradation. I had to sell all the designer clothes and jewelry Marcus had bought me on resale websites to pay bills because I had no savings since I had always spent money as fast as it came in maintaining expensive lifestyle. And perhaps worst of all, I had to live with knowledge that I had destroyed relationship with genuinely good person who had treated me incredibly well, someone who despite his physical appearance was more valuable and worthy of love than I had ever been with all my conventional beauty. I realized too late that I had been the ugly one all along. Not on outside, but on inside where it truly mattered. My soul was grotesque and deformed by vanity and greed, while Marcus's soul was beautiful beyond anything I deserved. Then about 8 months after our relationship ended, I saw on social media that Marcus had gotten engaged. My remaining followers, who still wanted to torture me, made sure I saw the announcement, and when I looked at photos of his fiancée, my heart broke in a way that was completely different from heartbreak I felt when I lost him. This was heartbreak of recognition and regret. His fiancée was a woman named Rachel, who was absolutely beautiful on outside with natural, effortless beauty that needed no filters or excessive makeup. But what was even more striking was everything I learned about her. By obsessively researching her online, which I couldn't help myself from doing, she worked as elementary school teacher in an underprivileged area of Los Angeles, teaching children who came from difficult backgrounds. She volunteered at homeless shelter every weekend helping feed and care for people who had nowhere else to go. She ran charity organization that provided school supplies to low-income students. She had no social media presence beyond basic Facebook account, where she posted genuine, unfiltered photos of her life that showed real person living authentically, rather than carefully curated image designed to attract followers. In the engagement photos, Marcus looked happier than I had ever seen him. His smile was genuine and reached his eyes. He held Rachel like she was most precious thing in the world, and she looked at him with expression of pure love and adoration. She clearly saw beauty in him that came from his character and his soul rather than his physical appearance. She had given him what I never could, which was authentic love based on who he truly was. I read interview Rachel gave to local newspaper where she talked about meeting Marcus at charity event where they had both been volunteering. She said, "I fell in love with Marcus's kindness, his intelligence, his passion for helping others, his ability to make me laugh, his thoughtfulness and care, the way he treats everyone with respect regardless of their status. He is the most beautiful person I have ever known. Because true beauty comes from inside and his soul is radiant, I feel incredibly blessed that he chose me." Reading those words destroyed me because I realized that Rachel had immediately recognized and valued everything about Marcus that had taken me over a year to even begin to appreciate. And even when I finally started to recognize his worth, I still couldn't get past my superficiality and materialism. I still cared more about his money than his character. Meanwhile, Rachel saw his character first and foremost, and everything else was irrelevant to her. They got married 6 months later in beautiful ceremony that was covered by local media because of Marcus's prominence in business and philanthropic communities. Photos showed ceremony filled with genuine joy and love. Rachel wore simple, elegant wedding dress that probably cost a fraction of what I would have demanded for my wedding dress. Marcus looked at her during their vows with such profound love and gratitude that it was visible even in still photos, and I knew that he had finally found what he had always been searching for, which was someone who loved him for exactly who he was. Now, 2 years after my life imploded, I'm 28 years old, working as administrative assistant, making $35,000 a year, living in a small apartment in Cleveland that costs $800 a month. I am blocked on all of Marcus's social media, so I can't see updates about his life anymore, which is probably for the best, because it's too painful. I have given up on influencer career completely because my reputation is permanently destroyed, and no amount of apology or rehabilitation can undo the damage I did to myself. I'm in therapy trying to understand how I became such a terrible person and trying to learn how to value things that actually matter rather than superficial appearances and material wealth. I occasionally go on dates, but I'm terrified to get into any relationship because I don't trust myself. I don't trust that I've actually changed fundamentally versus just learned to hide my worst impulses better. I look at myself in mirror now, and I don't see beautiful woman I used to see. I see someone whose external appearance masked internal ugliness for years. I see someone who wasted incredible opportunity to be with remarkable person because I was too shallow and broken to recognize his worth. The lesson I learned came far too late to save me from destroying my own life, but I share it now in hopes that others might learn from my catastrophic mistakes, that physical appearance is the most superficial and ultimately meaningless measure of a person's worth, that character, kindness, integrity, generosity of spirit, are infinitely more valuable than symmetrical features or perfect body. that someone who is conventionally unattractive on the outside but beautiful on the inside is 1,000 times more worthy of love than someone who is beautiful on the outside but ugly on the inside. That using another human being for material gain while pretending to care about them is one of the most morally bankrupt things a person can do. And the universe has a way of ensuring that such cruelty comes back to destroy you. I learned that money and luxury and designer clothes and Instagram followers and all the superficial markers of success that our culture tells us to value are absolutely meaningless if you don't have genuine human connections and authentic love and the ability to see and appreciate goodness in others, that you can have everything material world has to offer and still be completely empty and miserable inside. If you're a bad person who values wrong things, that karma is real, and when you treat people with cruelty and manipulation, eventually it catches up with you in ways that are perfectly calibrated to teach you exactly the lesson you need to learn, even if that lesson destroys everything you thought mattered. I learned that the person who is truly ugly is not the person who lacks conventional physical beauty, but rather the person who lacks empathy, compassion, authenticity, the ability to love genuinely, and that I was the ugly one in my relationship with Marcus, not him. My soul was deformed by years of valuing superficial things while his soul was beautiful in ways I couldn't recognize until it was far too late. I think about Marcus often. I wonder if he ever thinks about me, or if he has completely erased me from his memory as painful chapter he's glad to have closed. I wonder if he and Rachel are happy together, which I'm sure they are, because I've seen enough photos to know that their love is genuine in ways mine never was. I wonder if they have children now, and if Marcus is a wonderful father, I'm sure he would be. I wonder if he ever forgave me, or if he still harbors anger and hurt over what I did to him. I wonder if my betrayal made it harder for him to trust Rachel initially, or if her authentic goodness made it easy for him to see the difference between real love and fake manipulation. I hope he's happy. I genuinely mean that even though it causes me pain to think about, he deserves happiness after everything he went through, after all the people who used him and rejected him for his appearance, after the way I betrayed his trust so completely. He deserves to have found someone like Rachel who sees his true worth. And if my role in his story was to be the cautionary tale, the example of everything wrong that helped him recognize everything right when he met Rachel, then at least my terrible behavior served some positive purpose, even if it destroyed my own life in the process. I also think about the thousands of people who watched my Instagram live confession, who witnessed me expose myself as a terrible person in real time, who participated in the mob that destroyed my career and reputation. And while I absolutely deserved the consequences of my actions, I also think there's something troubling about how quickly people pile on to tear someone down publicly on social media, how much people enjoy watching someone's life fall apart, how there's no possibility of redemption or forgiveness in the court of public opinion. You make one mistake that gets captured on video, and that becomes your identity forever. You're permanently labeled and dismissed. And while again, I'm not saying I didn't deserve what happened to me, I do wonder about society that has become so quick to judge and condemn and finds entertainment in public destruction of flawed human beings. But I also recognize that I wasn't just flawed human who made one mistake. I was person who systematically and deliberately manipulated vulnerable person for over a year, who took his deepest insecurities and weaponized them against him, who laughed about his pain with my friends, who treated him as means to financial end, rather than as human being deserving of respect and authentic love. And those weren't mistakes. They were choices, deliberate, cruel choices that revealed fundamentally broken moral compass. And the fact that I got exposed publicly rather than privately doesn't change the fundamental wrongness of what I did. Sometimes late at night when I can't sleep, I torture myself by imagining alternate version of my life, version where I wasn't so superficial and materialistic, where when I met Marcus I was capable of seeing his worth immediately rather than only seeing his appearance, where I fell in love with him genuinely for his character and his kindness and his brilliant mind, where we built life together based on authentic connection rather than manipulation, where I became better person through relationship with him rather than continuing to be terrible person who destroyed everything good that came into her life, where I was the one who married him and had his children and shared his life, where I got to be loved by someone as remarkable as him because I was worthy of that love. But then I remember that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't capable of being that person at that time in my life, that I needed to lose everything to even begin to understand what actually matters. And even now, I'm not sure I've changed enough. I'm not sure the lessons I learned went deep enough to transform me fundamentally rather than just teaching me to hide my worst impulses better. I see beautiful people now, influencers and models and celebrities who are praised for their physical appearance, And I wonder how many of them are like I was, hollow inside, valuing all the wrong things, treating people as means to ends rather than as beings with inherent worth. And I wonder how many of them will eventually face their own reckoning, their own moment of exposure where the ugliness inside can no longer be hidden behind the beauty outside. I see couples where one person is conventionally attractive and other person is not, and I watch how they interact, trying to determine if the attractive person genuinely loves their partner or if they're with them for other reasons, like I was with Marcus. And sometimes I see genuine love that transcends physical appearance, and it gives me small amount of hope that not everyone is as broken as I was, that some people are capable of loving authentically regardless of superficial factors. I see Marcus's name occasionally in business news, articles about his latest real estate developments or his philanthropic initiatives, and I read these articles with mixture of pride and pain. Pride because he really is a remarkable person accomplishing remarkable things. Pain because I could have been part of that life if I had been different person, if I had been better person, if I had been capable of recognizing and valuing what truly mattered. My parents have been surprisingly supportive during these past 2 years, even though they have every right to say, "I told you so." They've let me live with them while I got back on my feet financially. They've listened to me process my guilt and regret without judgment. They've encouraged me to go to therapy and do the work of actually changing rather than just performing remorse. And slowly I'm learning to value the things they tried to teach me when I was younger, that I rejected in favor of pursuing Instagram fame and superficial success. Things like integrity, honesty, treating people with kindness regardless of what they can do for you, finding worth in who you are rather than how you look or what you own. I've started volunteering at local women's shelter, helping women who are in crisis situations similar to what I experienced when Marcus kicked me out and I had nowhere to go. And working with these women who have faced real hardship and trauma has given me perspective on how privileged and entitled my life was, how the fact that my biggest problem was being exposed as gold digger rather than facing domestic violence or addiction or homelessness or any of the real serious challenges these women face shows how sheltered and superficial my existence had been. I've also started mentoring young women who want to become influencers, trying to warn them about the dangers of building your entire identity and worth around superficial things like appearance and follower counts and brand sponsorships, trying to teach them that those things can disappear in an instant, as I learned the hard way. And if you have nothing of substance beneath the surface, you're left with nothing at all, trying to help them develop actual skills and values that will sustain them beyond their youth and beauty, which are temporary at best. I don't know if I'll ever have another serious relationship. I don't know if I'm capable of genuine love after spending so many years being fake and manipulative. I don't know if any man would want to be with me knowing my history as person who is publicly exposed as gold digger and user. My Google search results are permanently contaminated with articles about what I did. Any potential partner would immediately find out about my past the moment they searched my name, and who would want to be with someone knowing they were capable of such cruelty and deception? But perhaps that's part of my punishment, part of the consequences I have to live with. Perhaps I deserve to be alone since I treated someone's love with such contempt. Perhaps the universe's justice means that just as I denied Marcus the authentic love he deserved, I will now be denied the authentic love I might eventually be capable of giving. Perhaps this is what it means to face the full weight of your own actions, to live with the permanent consequences of temporary choices, to know that you destroyed not just someone else's trust, but your own possibility of ever being trusted again. I wish I could go back and do everything differently. I wish I could meet Marcus for the first time, with different eyes and different heart. I wish I could see his character and his kindness immediately, rather than only seeing his appearance and his money. I wish I could build relationship with him based on genuine connection and authentic love. I wish I could be the person he deserved rather than the person I was. But time only moves forward, and you can't undo the damage you've done no matter how desperately you wish you could. All I can do now is try to be a better person going forward. Try to learn from the catastrophic mistakes I made. Try to value what actually matters rather than superficial things that mean nothing. Try to treat people with kindness and respect regardless of what they look like or what they can offer me materially. Try to build life based on authentic connections and genuine purpose rather than fake image and material success. Try to deserve the forgiveness I know I'll never receive from Marcus, but maybe can eventually give to myself if I work hard enough at becoming fundamentally different person than I was. This is my confession, my cautionary tale, my desperate attempt to warn others not to make the mistakes I made, to show what happens when you value all the wrong things and treat people as means to ends rather than as beings with inherent worth and dignity, to demonstrate that external beauty without internal beauty is worthless, and that external ugliness doesn't matter at all when someone has beautiful soul. Marcus was never ugly. He was beautiful in all the ways that truly matter, And I was too blind and shallow and broken to see it until it was far too late, until I had destroyed everything, until I had lost my chance at something real with someone extraordinary. And now I have to live with that loss and that regret for the rest of my life. If you're reading this and you're someone who judges people primarily on their physical appearance, who values money and status and material things above character and kindness and authentic connection, who uses people for what they can provide rather than appreciating them for who they are, I'm begging you to change now before you destroy your life the way I destroyed mine. Don't wait until you've been publicly exposed and lost everything to learn that those superficial things don't matter. Don't wait until you've broken someone's heart and betrayed their trust to realize that authentic love is the only thing that truly matters. Don't wait until it's too late to become the person you should have been all along. Marcus found his happy ending with Rachel, someone who deserved him and appreciated him and loved him genuinely. And I'm genuinely happy for him, even though it breaks my heart that I wasn't capable of being that person for him. He got the love story he always deserved. He got the partner who saw his worth immediately. He got the life he should have had all along. And all I got was the punishment I earned and the lessons I needed to learn, and the permanent consequences of my own cruelty and superficiality. This is what happens when you're beautiful on the outside but ugly on the inside. When you value wrong things and treat people with contempt and manipulation. When you think you're so clever using someone for their money, but you're actually destroying your own soul in the process. This is what happens when you learn the most important lessons of your life too late to save yourself from the consequences of ignoring them for so long. My name is Jessica Morgan. I'm 28 years old. I destroyed my own life through my vanity and materialism and cruelty. And I share this story not because I expect forgiveness or sympathy, but because maybe, just maybe, someone reading this will recognize themselves in my story and will choose to change before they make the same catastrophic mistakes I made, before they destroy something beautiful because they were too shallow to recognize its worth, before they lose everything learning. The lesson they should have known all along. Beauty fades, money can disappear, fame is fleeting, but character lasts forever. And in the end, the only thing that truly matters is whether you loved genuinely and treated people with kindness and built your life on authentic connections rather than superficial illusions. I learned that lesson the hardest way possible, and now I have to live with the permanent consequences of having learned it too late.